Hey guys, it's Deneen here with December Daily 2023, Story 18, using the Tag 6x8 stamp set from this year's release. And I went ahead and printed out my journaling ahead of time and using a stamp celebrating this. And then I typed in some words. I'm using a very large photo of myself. And then this was done through my Mink machine with one of the papers from last year's Paisley press kit, and I foiled that. And these two pieces are 3.5 by 8.25, and they are going to make a flap. I'm loving the open flap pages this year, so I'm doing another one. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with my stamping. I'm using this outline stamp, and I'm not going to be very fancy. I'm not going to be adding any color. I'm just going to use my black StazOn ink, and I'm going to stamp some of these so that they are right side up on the tag, and some of these so that they are upside down. I'm going to have some of the tags facing in different directions. So I kind of planned that ahead of time when I formatted my journaling, so I knew which ones were going to be closer to which edge or which end. Alrighty, so let's cut this up here, get rid of that extra piece. And the top three on here I formatted so that they would be with the tag facing in the regular direction, right? So the star is at the top. And then the other four, I went ahead and formatted them so that the words were at the top and the star was at the bottom. And to be honest, if you space them far enough apart, it really doesn't matter. But knowing that these are very, very close to the size of the plastic tags that I'll be using, I originally think I'm going to use my trimmer, but then I realized that I could definitely be more precise with a pair of scissors. So instead of trimming, which would guarantee a straighter line, I'm using my own eyes to kind of get as close to that black border as I possibly can. All right, so I want these to be pretty much the same size as the tag. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like with my picture, and the flap is going to be on the right. So let's get my art tape out and adhere this together, because I'm going to be putting some tags across the photo and then onto the flap. So here are the ones I chose, and here are my the journaling spots that I want to adhere. So I think I'm going to start out by adhering the journaling first, because I know I want them to be in certain places. So I'm putting these on a little bit of a diagonal, and I'm just kind of fussing around with them a little bit to see how I can get them onto the photo and the flip without ruining any of the journaling. Okay, so here I pull out my old star punch, and I punch out the stars on those pieces with the journaling. I'm not really sure in the end if I needed to do that, but I did. And you'll see here that I do put some ribbon to connect some of these together, which you'll also see in the end that I changed my mind on that too. So I was laughing when I was making this, because I thought to myself, geez, I should have videos that are like what not to do. You know, don't do this. Because this is a flap, putting on that ribbon, it just didn't allow the flap to close, which I should have known better from the beginning, but I didn't. So for this one right here, I cut off the bottom so I can get more of the sentiment to be on the page. Nobody would ever know that, but I just wanted to let you know that you can trim these a little bit at the bottom if you want to adhere them so that you see more of the sentiment. Let's see what other lessons I learned from this. Yes, I started using my vellum adhesive and realized that I really didn't need to. It wasn't really working that well. And then I had my regular adhesive, and then you'll see here at some point in this process that I eventually try out a piece of my score tape, and I realized that, yeah, it can't be seen. So awesome. It's definitely going to hold everything down a lot nicer with the score tape. So I finish off with the score tape, and I probably add that to a few of the others as well, like here. Okay, so trimming off the ribbon, which eventually will be completely trimmed off. I will then go ahead and just, adhere some of those pieces down with a little bit of my score tape, and then trim off the edges, what is hanging off the edges, I should say. And then you'll notice while I'm doing that, I do need to add a little bit more adhesive. You'll know as you're doing this whether or not the pieces are moving. Okay, so now I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm going to cut that apart, which is kind of weird because I already put it together, but you do need to cut it because it will not fold because those tags are in the way. So I'm essentially cutting the tags apart, and they are going to be right next to each other and adhered back together with another piece of art tape, but they can't fold if they are still intact. So I'm kind of slicing right down there. And here you're going to see me adding the art tape to the back again, trimming off the edges and just testing that fold. How is that folding? Can I have these pieces, like how close together can they be? So always make sure it folds, opens and closes nicely. So here's the piece that's going to go on the top. And at first you're going to see that I'm holding it or placing it next to the other tags. And the only reason why I'm doing this, excuse me, is because I want them to be on the same diagonal. And even though you're never going to be able to see the front of the flap and the inside at the same time, I just felt like they needed to be on the same diagonal, just for visual reasons. So I have my 3.5 by 8.25 piece of cardstock right next to the inside, just so I can get everything lined up nicely. And then as I'm adding these, you will see that I am kind of moving that away because I don't really need to have them next to each other. So same process here. I am just using my score tape to place them. There is no rhyme or reason here. There was no pattern. I just put them on either upside down or downside up, depending on the mood that I was in as I was placing it on the page. So you can do you. You can put them all the same way. You can put them all different ways. It's completely random. You don't need to worry about that. Here I am trimming off those edges that are coming off the side. And then I will go ahead and I will use my adhesive to adhere that to the top of the flap. Alrighty, then I'm going to adhere this to my December there. You'll see that I measure, making sure everything together reaches 11 inches, mark it, and then I chop it off and then punch my holes. One of the things I also want to show you, there's me cutting off all of the ribbon, is that I put some stars on here. And I had also gone ahead and used some white in my Mink on some transparency, and I wanted to put it on top of that star. So you're going to see here I do that, right? I get a little brad. I tried a big one, too big. So I go and find a tiny brad, poke a hole, and I use that to put the star transparency on top of that star vellum. And then I add these two other stars as well. But you'll see that I changed my mind on that too. So anyway, a little tab on the flap so that the viewer can open and read and see the additional things on the inside as well. So this is what it turned out to be when I finished my video, and then you go ahead and you open it like this. But that's not how it turned out in the end. And I'll show you how it is in my album and some of the changes that I made. So here we are as it sits in my album. You'll see I took off that transparency with the white Mink material on it. I liked it. I just didn't like the way it was laying. And so I couldn't think of a way to adhere it down. I loved how it turned out. It really turned out nice. The white Mink material worked super well. I was nervous about that, but I just didn't like the way it laid. So I decided to remove that and just add the number 18 with some white letter stickers or puffy letter stickers from, I believe, last year. And that made me happier. So I was good with that. I also added some ribbon in 3 different spaces to the front of the layout, and little tiny brads also on the 2 stars that are on the tags. So those are the changes that I made after I had finished. And then we're going to go ahead and take a look at, when you open the flap, what I ended up doing to the inside when I removed the ribbons that I had originally put there. So here it is without the ribbons. And you'll see that I added a few gold chipboard stars in just some random places, and I think it made me happier. Just the way it laid when you closed it was just much, much better. And I think that's pretty much all I did on the inside. But that is it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm always here to answer them. Thank you for playing along, and I will see you in my next video.